Do you think we've entered a more dangerous chapter of terrorism?
The threat evolves. It continually evolves. What the threat looks like today is certainly not what it looked like 10 years ago, and it won't be what it looks like in 10 years. So,
do you have a sense of what the face of terrorism might look like down the road?
I don't want to guess.
Michael Steinbach is the head of the FBI's counterterrorism division. His mission is to protect Americans from terrorism threats. And we talked about all the different kinds of threats: lone wolves, foreign fighters, the fact that ISIS is using social media to recruit America's youth.
They are using it successfully, I might add, to spot, assess, identify, target folks outside of war zones. They're using it in Europe, and they're using it in the United States.
When you say target folks, how young are we talking?
We've seen across the globe kids as young as 13 recruited by ISIL.
13-year-old American?
In the United States, we've seen, where we've identified kids as young as 15.
Are they actually in direct contact in some of these cases with ISIS militants who are overseas in Syria that are reaching out to them directly?
What we've seen is individuals in Syria reaching directly into the United States, starting in public chats on different social media platforms, and then moving to private chats where they continue to recruit, inspire, and then coerce individuals either to travel overseas or, even worse, to conduct an attack here in the United States.
Let's talk about the parents. Did they see a process of radicalization taking place over time?
So we've seen the full spectrum. We've seen parents who encourage, we've seen parents who are oblivious, and we've seen parents who are in a state of denial. Parents need to monitor activities of children on the internet and on smartphones.
We have seen a string of terrorist attacks really around the world. We saw it in Ottawa, we saw it in Sydney, we saw it recently in Paris. And so the question is, how does that increase the threat for Americans?
I'm concerned drones can be used as a terrorist weapon. I'm concerned guns, bombs, cars. You're focusing on the tool. I'm focusing on the threat. So anything can be used as a tool to conduct an attack. Look to Jerusalem over the last year, using a car to kill innocent civilians. We have to focus on the threat.
It's really clear from this interview that it takes a village to fight counterterrorism. Whenever there's a crisis, this is where Steinbach and others within the FBI would gather. They give out orders from this place to offices in the field or wherever a terrorist attack or crisis is happening. What's stopping a terrorist attack like what we saw in Paris from happening here in the U.S.?
Strong, committed professionals in the law enforcement community, strong, committed individuals in the intelligence community, working night and day to identify threats and disrupt those threats.
But didn't France have that as well?
Sure they did.
But then we saw what happened.
It's a tough bar. It's a tough bar that we've set for ourselves, and we have to continually strive to improve, to look at how we do things and get better.
Some Americans have a concern that the FBI is infringing on their rights, especially in the wake of the Snowden leaks. How do you balance protecting the American people while also protecting their civil liberties?
So I would say a few things with that. First of all, we don't have a desire or a right to step on somebody's freedom of expression. Their right to express their opinion. But when that opinion turns into violent rhetoric and then into action, that's something different. So I'll use this time to talk about my concern, and that is, look, you've heard the FBI term going dark perhaps, and that's our concern that we are losing the ability to see communication content with valid legal process, either a court order or a search warrant or something similar. We're losing that ability to see communication content because perhaps technology is changing, perhaps companies' software is changing, but for whatever reason, we're going down a dangerous path, because whether you're talking to terrorists, whether you're talking to gangster or an organized crime group, they are exploiting that chink in the armor.
And are you seeing terrorists actually exploiting it?
Absolutely.
There's a ton of collaboration that takes place between the intelligence community and law enforcement, and even though Steinbach is the head of the counterterrorism division, there is a ton of teamwork that goes into place within his division. What is it that is your biggest fear, given all of the dangerous threats out there and all that's going on?
The travelers, the lone wolves, those are all knowns. It's the unknowns that worry me.